in particular, to some extent Dallas, Chicago. Who do they spend it on? If the superstar future Hall of Fame players are off the board, they need to spend it on somebody. That's why I think you're seeing these teams move aggressively and quickly coming out of free agency, starting with Lonzo Ball. One point about the Wizards, I think that would have to be a sign and trade, or they'd have to get creative to figure out how to bring in Dinwiddie to D.C. They made the deal with Westbrook going out. He is going to be a Laker. We've discussed that, but they don't have the cap space just to go sign Dinwiddie. So does Brooklyn play ball in that kind of scenario, or do they move some parts around? The guys they got in that deal, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, do those guys go somewhere else to try to create some room for them to absorb Spencer Dinwiddie?
Stay with us here. We're going to continue to flash across our screen here all of these reports that are coming through, and we'll bring you the latest here, including Mike Conley, according to Shams, The Athletic reporting, and this is first reported by Tony Jones, the great beat reporter for The Athletic, that he will go back, Mike Conley will, to Utah on a 3-year deal. Shams saying that Jimmy Butler is expected to agree to a maximum contract extension with the Heat. I want to go back to New Orleans here because 3D, it seemed like the Pelicans were going to be the team to try and make a lot of noise. David Griffin, our former colleague here, is under enormous pressure to get this team into the postseason. He had to hire his third different head coach in the last 11 months, bringing in Willie Green. Zion, there's rumors of him being unhappy in New Orleans. It seems as if you have struck out on your plan A with Kyle Lowry. It seems as if Lonzo's gone to Chicago. So 3D, what is New Orleans positioning themselves to do right now with this money to spend and the guys flying off the board?
I think Griff has his back up against the wall right now, guys, because, if you believe in these so-called reports, if Zion's unhappy, then who is that perfect point guard? Who is that perfect guard to match? I think he and Ingram have proved now they both can be all-stars. They both can coexist on the floor. I thought Stan, and Sam, you know this too, I thought Stan did a good job of putting the ball in his hands and proving that he can do more on the floor with the ball in his hands just posting up. So I don't know who that player is, Sam and Ryan, right now out there in the market that you can say, oh, Bucks got it right. They went out and found Drew Holiday. He plugged in, played with Chris Middleton and Giannis. They go on to win. I don't know if there is a perfect player for Zion right now, Ryan.
No, the challenge, 3D, is their 2 point guards from last year. Lonzo Ball looks like he's headed to Chicago. Eric Bledsoe was in the deal on draft night with Memphis. And that's why, if I'm in the Pelicans front office, guys, I'm not waiting. I'm on the phone with Spencer Dinwiddie right now trying to hammer out a deal. Okay, if you like Dennis Schroeder better, I personally prefer Dinwiddie.
I agree.
But if you like Schroeder,
I would agree, yeah.
You get somebody locked in. Because if this market moves, guys, we're talking about, again, the top of the list. Lowry spoken for in Miami. Conley back to Utah. All these guys going off the board. You don't want to be left holding the bag. It's great you have a ton of cap space. Yeah. David Aldridge just reported they were going to sign Garrett Temple. He's a nice piece, but they need a high-end answer and a high-end starter. I personally like Dinwiddie for the Pelicans.
All right, looks like as part of this sign and trade, Chicago getting Lonzo Ball, the Bulls going to make a sign and trade and send back Tomas Satoransky and Garrett Temple, plus a second-round pick to New Orleans in exchange for Lonzo Ball. Satoransky, really good backup in this league.
Solid, but
I don't know if he's their
starting point guard. Doesn't move the needle. Yeah, we like him. He's solid.
You got to have the one thing that New Orleans needed, though, was a veteran presence. And I think trying to read the tea leaves of what New Orleans was setting themselves up to do this summer, they look like they wanted to take the Phoenix Suns model of drafting really young, talented players the last several years, acquiring some by way of trade, Brandon Ingram, drafting Zion. They've got some other pieces, Jackson Hayes and some other guys there. They made the sign and they made the trade to get Jonas Valanciunas in there, shed some salary. They needed a veteran presence. Garrett Temple, I don't know how much he'll play for them, but he can be that stabilizing voice in the locker room. Does that model, that doesn't model, though, what Phoenix did with Chris Paul last year?
It helps, but to your guy's point, the stature of that guy, who that guy is. When you walk through that door, when Chris Paul walked through the door, he had a resume. Everyone in that locker room had certain expectations that Chris Paul is coming. So you understood as a player, Chris Paul is coming through the door. They don't have that guy in the locker room. Right now, they're being led by a bunch of young players. All right, when you look at Zion Williamson, you look at those players right there, these guys are leaders. They're still trying to find themselves in the league. Willie Green's a young coach. He needs not only some veterans, coaches around him, he needs some veteran players around him that can echo his voice. You got a young team that don't play defense right now. You need to bring a guy through the door that has on his forehead, We are going to defend. We are going to change the culture. We're going to do these things the right way. And right now, Griff is kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. The thing he don't want to do, Ryan, is this. Start overpaying guys that can't produce. And that's the thing you don't, when you start waiting and these guys start coming off the board and you have this money to spend, do you start throwing money at guys, overpaying guys, or do you sit back and say, look, let me see, can I get some bargains? Because just as bad as not signing anyone is signing guys to bad contracts.
That's exactly right, and that's how you box yourself in the future. So one thing I think David Griffin and Trajan Langdon should be thinking about in the Pelicans front office, if they don't want to pay Spencer Dinwiddie or Dennis Schroeder on a big money long-term contract, can they get Goran Dragic, who's going out of Miami? We don't know if Toronto wants Dragic or not. They already have Fred VanVleet, talented point guard. So he's on one-year deal, $19.4 million. It gives you a player for this year. It also keeps your flexibility for the future. I think New Orleans should look at that. When they came into this free agent period, they did not have Garrett Temple and Thomas Satoransky in mind. That's not why they made the moves on draft night. I think they should and will be big game hunting. I like Spencer Dinwiddie. I would understand Dragic. And this is where, getting back to Kawhi Leonard, it's great that he wants to take meetings. I just think the market's going to move too fast. It's Dallas and New Orleans. We'll see what the Knicks do. These teams with cap space spend themselves out. I don't know if anybody's going to wait from Kawhi. I don't think they are. And I don't think a team like New Orleans, Dallas, or New York should wait. The market's moving quickly as we anticipated. And I think New Orleans needs to get the best starting caliber point guard they can get tonight, if possible.
Who is that?
For me, Dinwiddie 1, Dragic 2, maybe Schroeder, but I like Dinwiddie.
And the whole thing, listen, I know this is convoluted and we joke about this the period beginning at 6 o'clock Eastern, but Dinwiddie, according to Shams Charania of the Athletic and Stadium, has a meeting right now with Washington that wasn't planned 30 seconds ago, right? They planned that meeting. So how does New Orleans get into that mix? And New Orleans has money here, so
you just said it.
They got money.
They just said it. They need to call Dinwiddie's agent and say, we got the most money and we want him.
All right,
just that simple.
A couple of other deals here just to get you up to speed. And again, rolling on the bottom of our screen as they come in. We're going to continue to report these deals. And Ryan McDonough, former Suns GM, is doing a great job of putting them into context for us.
But can we talk about Dallas real quick? Because I think we...
Let me update. Let me go through some of these deals in case you're just joining us. And again, marathon session for us. We'll be here all night. Send coffee to our studio if you can, please. Jimmy Butler, in addition to Kyle Lowry reportedly going to Miami, Butler's going to get a 4-year, $184 million extension. Lonzo Ball to Chicago in a reported sign and trade, 4 years, $85 million. A couple of other lesser under the radar deals, I should say. Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks going back to the Knicks. We've got to spend some time talking about the Knicks here in a couple of minutes because they have more money than any team to spend. But how will they spend their money will tell us a lot about what they expect for themselves this upcoming year. JaMychal Green reportedly going back to Denver, 2 years, $17 million, as well as Will Barton going back to Denver. For me, bit of a surprise. Had a bit of a contentious relationship with Denver over the last couple of years, particularly in the bubble. Barton, 2 years, $32 million to go back to the Nuggets. Mike Conley Jr. going back to Utah, and Tim Hardaway Jr. going back to Dallas. So on Kristaps Porzingis' birthday here, his birthday gift, I guess, is seeing his good buddy Tim Hardaway Jr. resign. Where'd you want to go with Dallas here, 3D?
That as we've been talking about players and is it a point guard, is it a playmaker you're talking about for Dallas, it has to be somebody when Luka goes to the bench, Dallas can either hold the fort or continue to ascend. Because when Luka goes to the bench, that team goes, yum, just like that. Just like we talk about with the Lakers, when AD or LeBron goes to the bench, yum. That's the bigger problem. Is it Dinwiddie or is there another player out there where Nico's saying, you know what, that's our guy, this is who we need, if we're going to keep Porzingis, so now he and Porzingis can be on the floor. Now when Luka goes to the floor, now we can hold on the floor. Otherwise, you're still in trouble playing Luka 40 minutes a night.
Yeah, man, when you start bargain shopping, that's what some of these teams are going to start doing because these top guys are already starting to commit. You got to try to find a perfect fit. You got to find guys, and this is the thing, it's not going to be a secret. Every GM and every scout out there know who those guys are. It's going to be your pitch. How can I convince this guy that our team and our organization is the right fit when the money's the same? Mm-hmm. And that's the selling point. It ain't necessarily about playing with superstars. It's about putting me in this position as a free agent who's the guy that's willing to take a minimum deal, who's going to put me in the best opportunity to win, and if I'm still relatively young, who's going to give me an opportunity to play well so I can get paid one day.
Yeah.
A couple of other deals to mention here. We talked about Jared Allen earlier. It was first reported by Mark Stein. Jared Allen agreeing to a 5-year, $100 million deal to stay with Cleveland. Ryan, this is interesting here because Cleveland just drafted with the 3rd pick, Evan Mobley. So what do you see here with this deal?
I see those guys playing together. Evan Mobley, the 3rd pick in the draft out of USC, was as talented as any player in this draft class. He was the most talented big man in this draft class, but he's light. He's a teenager, as you guys know. It takes some time to play 5 in the NBA. Think of who you have to compete against. Some of the beasts in our league physically, Marc Gasol, Jonas Valanciunas, Andre Drummond. These guys are men. So I think the Cavs envision Jared Allen as their starting center, Evan Mobley as their starting power forward. Now, as Mobley gets some experience and gains some strength, maybe he can slide to the 5. Maybe when Allen's on the bench, Mobley slides to the 5. But I think that's the allotment they envision, Jared. What Cleveland did, I think, was smart. They're the only team that could give Jared Allen a 5-year deal. So they gave him $100 million. That's a lot of money for a guy who was a late first-round pick coming off the rookie scale, but they lock him in through his prime. And Cleveland has that flexibility. They don't have a lot of long-term contracts and a lot of long-term money on their books, especially after Kevin Love's deal expires in 2 years. So they have a young team, and they're starting to lock into their core. The next thing I'm watching with the Cavs is Colin Sexton is eligible for an extension. Do they extend Sexton? Or if not, are they willing to put him in play on the trade market? Because if he doesn't get an extension this offseason, he'd hit restricted free agency next offseason.
No, I like it too. Evan Mobley, just watch him at the draft, guys. I mean, the pick and pop ability, he can shoot 3-point range, he runs the floor. So now you're telling Afro Power block shots, you're telling Evan to move. And to your point, you just got to make a tough decision on like, would you call them draft night, sex land? You got to make a decision. If you like that small backcourt with 2 trees down low blocking shots and you get them out there playing passing things get interesting once Kevin Love moves on.
Here's an interesting move from Jay Michael. Jay Michael covers the Pacers for the Indy Star, saying that the Pacers are bringing back T.J. McConnell. Now, the reason why I point this out, Ryan, is because the Pacers had been rumored